What is consciousness? What does it mean to even have a perspective? What does that mean? What does it mean to be alive and aware? What is it to be making the connection between the self and the outside? What does it even mean to be a self? What is it to be conscious? Well, we're going to do all of that stuff. We're going to get into all that stuff pretty heavy today and answer those questions to realize that there is only consciousness. That consciousness is the fundamental substrate to all of reality. You guys ready? Here we go. Welcome back to the show. It's so nice to see everyone in here. Awesome crowd in here. This is great. I think you guys like this topic. Please let me know if the music is too loud or if I'm too loud, and I'll make some changes. I had to break down my whole set here and put it back together again at the last minute. So there we are. Awesome. So awesome to see everybody. So I apologize for not being here last week. Just real quick, I had a miracle unfold in my life, and I think you wouldn't blame me if I missed last week. But I wasn't necessarily looking for a house. I kind of was hoping to have a house in the back of my mind. But you know how it is. You look for houses forever, and you just keep looking and looking and looking and looking. And a dear friend of mine told me about this house that became available, which was my dream house years ago. I wanted to buy this house years ago, and it's my total dream house. And it's like a castle, really, in the mountains. And just honestly, I know I do well, and I feel like a successful person, but it seemed like it was just out of reach. It was just like, man, that's just not going to happen. And I kind of went and did the whole walkthrough, and I thought, I'm just going to start applying these things. I'm just going to act as if. I'm going to act as if I can afford this thing, no problem. And I'm going to go through the tour, and I'm just going to act as if this is my house. I'm just going to walk around and act like this is my kitchen, like I'm going into my closet, I'm going into this living room. And I just went through the motions that it was mine, that it was all mine. And didn't even know how I was going to make an offer to this because I just didn't have quite enough money to do it. And then I was telling my dear friend Jeff, who's my business partner over here at Fire Tribe, and I was telling him what was going on, and that I was going to try to see this incredible house and just see if there's a way to manifest it. And then he was kind enough to loan me the money to put the down payment down, and then we put in a ridiculously low offer, and then all of a sudden, wham, we got the phone call at like 10 o'clock at night. So I just bought a castle in the mountains. I'm a castle owner. So like what I'm trying to tell you by saying this is not to brag, but to say it doesn't matter if you can't make sense of how and why it's going to happen. Just go through the mental steps of having it. And there's no limit to what you can manifest. There really, really isn't. I mean, if I use my logical brain in this, there's no way I could have gotten this place. Just no way. It just wasn't going to happen. It wasn't going to happen. And through a cascade of miracles, literally a cascade of miracles, I just signed the paperwork yesterday. So it's all happening. It's all happening. So future broadcasts next month will be coming from my castle in the mountains. How exciting is that, huh? I'll give you guys a little tour. All right, enough about me and my drama. Let's get into you and your drama. Let's get into the nature of consciousness and what all that means. Thank you guys very much. Yes, thank you. I'm very, very excited about it. I can't wait to share it with you guys. All right, so we're going to take a look at some things about consciousness, and we're going to cover the things that we think that we automatically presume about consciousness, and I'm going to point out why those things are false. And we're going to re-examine everything about reality from the ground up, okay? Because that's what it means when we say something is fundamental. I had a play on words in the title. I said it was fundamental, meaning it's fun of the mind. And that's what consciousness is. It's fundamental. It is the foundation of everything, but more importantly, it is the foundation of all experience, all thoughts, all everything. It's the fundamental substrate to all reality. And you say, Ford, how can that be? How can it be the fundamental substrate? The fundamental substrate of our consciousness is the brain, right? The consciousness comes from the brain. That's what most of you guys think, right? But it's not true. It just isn't true. And you say, well, what about the Big Bang? We know that there's the Earth, it evolved here 13.79 billion years, and it came out of the Big Bang, and then all this matter formed, and right? I'm going to show you why none of that stuff has any validity whatsoever. So again, we're going to build this from the ground up. Are you guys ready? You guys excited? All right. So I was asking the question earlier, what is it to be a self and what is it to be conscious? And the reason why is you would think with all of the studying that we've done of the brain, everything we've looked into the mind, we've dissected it, we've analyzed it, we've scanned it, we've tested it in so many different ways. And after almost 2 centuries or 3 centuries of studying the brain, nobody, not even Nobel Prize winning scientists, can agree that consciousness is confined to the skull. No one can prove it. Nobody. I don't care how smart you think you are. You can't prove that consciousness comes from the brain. As a matter of fact, the best theory that we have is that consciousness is some sort of receiver. It is a filter. And that the brain it filters out consciousness, which is omnipresent. That consciousness is literally everywhere and in everything. And somehow our brain is a receiver, the way that a radio is a receiver, right? So the radio stations are not in the radio, right? They're at a radio station and it's broadcasted. And the brain picks up that signal, and then we interpret that signal as audio, right? So the reason we realize this about consciousness is because in every way we've tested it is as amazing and as impressive as the brain is, which is holy cow impressive. It simply cannot account for all of the mechanistic operations, the neural synapses that must happen in order to do things simple like react and catch a ball, for example. Like that, the number of processes that takes, the brain is just entirely too slow to do it. So, and it's examples like that, and there's a million more examples, but we've realized that the brain is just too slow. It's too slow. So the best it could be is an antenna. That's right, Gigi. It's an antenna. It's an antenna. So what is consciousness? What is it? Only thing we could do is we can only measure the symptoms of consciousness. It's the best we can do, is measure the symptoms. We can measure the symptom of sight, smell, taste. What else? Emotions, thoughts. Some of us have extrasensory perception, right? A little bit of psychic abilities there. We all know that we can sense when someone's watching us. What is that? Yeah. So all we know for sure about consciousness is that we can measure the symptoms. Those are just the symptoms of what consciousness is. So what we don't know about consciousness is, with all the calculations of the brain and everything that it's doing to process information, the lingering question, which makes us question whether consciousness is in the brain or outside of the brain, aside from the relative speed of it, is that we have no idea where the spark comes from. We have this imagination of ideas. We have the spark of imagination, right? That's what we call it, a spark of imagination. But where did the spark come from? And that's where the neurologists are stuck. They have ideas about what causes them to spark, but nothing concrete at all. Nothing concrete. So the brain is made up of a few different parts. We have this reptilian center of our brain. And then we have higher processing for language, emotion, and our emotions. And then we have the frontal lobe, which is much more of our emotions. But it's mostly driven through the reptilian mind, which asks the simple question, how is this relevant to me? With every encounter, this is what the brain asks. How is this relevant to me? Which is a very, very narrow scope. It's a very narrow perspective of the world, isn't it? To just say, how is this relevant to me? And the way that it does this is it perceives the information, and then it compares this information to all of the memories that you have in your mind beginning from birth. All of the experiences that you've had since birth have created a memory bank, a memory system of who you are. So that when every new experience comes in, you're comparing this experience to the experiences of your brain, or the experiences of the memories, rather. And because we all have our own unique set of circumstances, our own unique lives, this creates a tremendous amount of diversity, doesn't it? The way I see the world may not be at all the way that you see the world. Not at all. Why? Because your experiences through life have taught you something completely different. It's given you a completely different lens through which you perceive the world. This is why we can be like, oh, that person's an idiot. How can they see things that way? He's an idiot. She's an idiot. Blah, 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 blah. It's not that we're idiots. We're just seeing things very, very different. We're seeing everything very, very different. And through this understanding of consciousness, it is to see that because consciousness is not confined to the skull, what consciousness is in everything. It's everything is conscious. Every rock, every cell, every plant, every animal, every person, right? Everything is consciousness. And then all of that is being distilled through the brain to our, and gives us our perceptions. Okay, so that is the layman's look through a neural way of looking at consciousness through the eyes of biology, to say that it comes from the brain. So we can kind of see that is no bueno, right? Not working. Well, here's what's interesting is that we're going to look at consciousness another way too. So we're going to look at it through science. So what I want you to see is we have no idea where our consciousness came from. We just know that there's an experience happening before our eyes, and we're trying to explain what this experience is. So what is it? What is it? This experience that we're calling consciousness, what exactly is it? It's not in the brain, and we get all the indication that it's coming from the outside in, that it's being perceived but it's being perceived only through the mind. So because it's being perceived only through the mind, we have no way of validating or giving any kind of validity to what's out there. This is the work of Rene Descarte, who was a mad scientist in the, I think, 1600s, who famously said, "I think, therefore I am." That was his big postulation after all of his years of research into the mind and consciousness. I think, therefore I am, which is a very true statement, is it not? Because everything you think about is coming in through the eye of the mind. It's coming in through the third eye. We're seeing it through the eyes of the mind. Right? But that's the only thing we can be sure of. We can't really be sure of anything else. We can't prove anything on the outside whatsoever, because all of it, everything is being processed inside the mind. So Rene Descartes, his proposal was called the brain in a vat theory. And his proposal was that we have no way of knowing that we are not just a bunch of brains inside jars with electrodes hooked up to it, and there's some kind of mad scientist making us feel all of these things by sending these little electrical impulses to the brain. And so we have no way of knowing. We have no way of knowing. The only thing we can be sure of is that we think, therefore we am. We think, therefore we exist. Can you see the dilemma, what I'm talking about here? This is why nobody can argue with these things, because at the end of the day, everything is coming from the mind. Everything that we know about everything is a perception through the mind. And being that it's a perception through the mind, if we can't understand what the mind is, whether it's in the skull or outside of the skull, then we really don't know anything about anything, do we? And science runs into this a very, very similar problem when we're trying to explain what reality is. It's the same sort of issues. So science will tell us that everything came from what's called the Big Bang, right? That's the prevailing theory in all of science about where everything comes from. That 13.79 billion years ago, there was an explosion. That before this explosion, there was nothing. There was just, from nothing, this explosion took place, and it blew out 13.79 billion years ago, and then all those little chunks of plasma energy coalesced and cooled to become tangible matter, forming rocks and stars and planets and all of these things. Right? But the science, they cannot prove the Big Bang. There's no proof of the Big Bang. It's interesting, the Big Bang idea came from a priest. A Catholic priest is the one that first proposed the idea of the Big Bang. This scientific theory that we all hold so sacred and we're taught in school came from a Catholic priest, which is kind of interesting, right? So we've got the brain. We can't explain consciousness through the brain. Can't explain that. Can't explain what reality is. We're perceiving it through the brain, through the mind, but we really can't really understand exactly what it is. Part of the problem with the Big Bang is that, well, I'll get to that later. We'll get to that later. So we got the brain, doesn't know we don't know what it is. We don't know what consciousness is by looking at the brain. We don't know what consciousness is by looking at the Big Bang. What the Big Bang would say is that from the Big Bang, everything blew out, it coalesced and cooled, and on these rocks, evolution took place, and through billions and billions of years of coalescing chemicals, we produced amino acids, and then these complex amino acids produced what we would call life, single-cell amoebas. And then from the single-cell amoeba, we evolved into complex organisms, and then from complex organisms, we evolved to mammals, and then from mammals, we grew this consciousness, which we call our mind and our brain, our consciousness. And that's the quick elevator pitch of science describing and explaining what the mind is and how we got here. So that's their explanation. But there's a problem with their explanation. I'll get to it. There's another way that we can look at reality. We can look at it through the lens of religion, right? Religion has a different way of looking at it. They say that in the beginning there was only God. It was a singularity. They say that God is omnipresent and that He exists to this day, that His divine presence can be felt and it guides us through what they call the Holy Spirit. Now, what is the Holy Spirit? It's to describe, the way they describe the Holy Spirit is to say that it's our imagination. That when we are using our imagination, when we are using the creative powers of the imagination, we are said to be in spirit or inspired, right? We're inspired. We're inspired to be in spirit. And this is said to be the act of the Holy Spirit. This is God's action on us. This God is always within us, is what religious tells us. It's always there. It's always with us. Always there. So we've got the neurologists saying that the brain isn't the source of consciousness. It is a source of consciousness, but they can't prove it. We've got science saying that evolution is the source of consciousness, but it can't be proved. And now we've got religious saying that just God created everything, that God first imagined the universe, and then it was created, right? Camera. So you've got one explanation coming from science, which is designed to give us a creation explanation that's rich in the nuances of astrophysics. And we've got another perspective of the mind that provides a parable designed to evoke a certain feeling or connectivity to our one true source. Now, if you take a look at everything that I've just mentioned, it seems like you've got two or three very opposing theories, right? Let's just say two. You've got science on one side proposing this theory, and on the other side of the coin, you have religious presenting their theory of how we all came to be and how mind came to be. And what I want you to see is I want you to see that it's like a coin, right? You got one side telling us one thing, and on the other side telling us a completely opposite perspective of one truth. What is the one truth? That we are here existing and perceiving in the here and now. And this is what we're trying to get to. This is what we're all trying to point to. How do we explain what is happening to us right now in the here and now? What is this? We're all just here having this experience. Where did it come from? And what I want you to see is when you're centered, I want you to see that both of these explanations are true at the same time. They only seem like they're opposite when you're fully committed or caught into either one of those sides of belief. If you're more of scientific light, more of the scientific kind, and you're coming from that perspective, then the Big Bang makes perfect sense to you. And from that perspective, you cannot imagine how anyone could believe in the ridiculousness of some old man in a book who created the world and created consciousness. That just seems preposterous to you. And if you're really into Holy Scripture, you cannot understand how anyone can come up with such a crazy, concocted story about where everything came from. It's a very convoluted story about where everything came from, right? So what I want you to see is that only when we're centered can we see the truth of both sides. You have to remove your attachment to either side and just look at it objectively and see that there are two opposing perspectives telling the same story. And each story, it doesn't matter which side you look at it, each story, the moral of the story is the same. The purpose of life is enlightenment. It's to thrive. That's the purpose of life. Thrive. That's the moral of the story. Why are we asking all these questions? We're trying to understand what our purpose is, what we're here for. So it doesn't matter which way you look at it. You can look at it through the lens of science, or you can look at it through the lens of religion and spirituality. But the moral of both stories is that we are here for enlightenment. We are here to thrive and to realize who and what we are and why we're here. This is the whole point of being here. No matter which lens we look through. Now, if you ask scientists, they would say that, well, this is not true. The only way that you can possibly appreciate the astonishing truth of reality is if you fully understand the mechanisms of physics and biochemistry. That's the only way they say that's the only way you can fully appreciate the magnificence of what it is to be alive in the here and now. That unless you understand these things, you're taking all of life for granted. And conversely, religion says if you just study scripture enough, Doesn't matter which scripture it is, but you'll never appreciate life. You'll never appreciate the astonishing aspects of life unless you dedicate yourself to religious study. That it's the only way to appreciate what life is. That you'll never get it unless you study the scripture, right? Do you see how they're both stuck in their own dogmas? They're both so fully rooted in their own dogmas, they can't see past their own dogma to consider another perspective. Are you guys with me so far? These are really big ideas, so I'm trying to be like a little slow with this. Now here's the thing. Both of these arguments, they break down at the same place. They break down at the very same place. So for science, it is said that energy cannot be created or destroyed. So if that's the case, where did the energy to create the Big Bang come from? The law of thermodynamics prevents this. Doesn't allow it. So when you look really closely, we have all the scientists pointing towards the Big Bang. They're saying this is where it came from, this is where it came from. But when you look, and you really look at it, and you ask the simple question, the obvious question, well, where did this spark come from? Where did the initial Big Bang come from? Where did this come from? What is blowing out? They don't have an answer. Because the only answer they can provide breaks the law of thermodynamics. Now you got some people that are saying, oh, it's plasma leaked in from another universe. It comes in from a different universe that we know nothing about, and it leaks in, and there's this plasma that leaks in. What kind of answer is that? It's not an answer. They don't know. We've never seen another universe. We don't know. We don't know. And in religion, if we look at it through their eyes, this is where it breaks down in the same place. Can you guys answer this for me? I'm sure you guys are already ahead of me on this. Where is the obvious place that religion breaks down if you really look at it closely? It breaks down in the same exact place. The same place when every single child says to someone, who created God? Oops. No answer, right? I don't know. God just always is. Just always existed. And then science goes, that's right. The universe just always existed. It blows out and it comes back, and it blows out and it comes back, even though we have no evidence of this whatsoever. We only have the evidence of it blowing out. Right? Can you see how both of these theories fall apart at the same place? They fall apart at the beginning. Right in the beginning. There is another theory, though, and this other theory unifies both of these opposing theories. And it's so obvious, this thing that unifies both theories, that it's literally right in front of your face. It's so close, most people cannot see it. They're not capable of seeing it. And that is the here and now, the eternal present moment. It's the thing that's always here, in the present moment. That's the constant. That's the constant that both of them share. In order for science to explain anything, they have to have the present moment. In order for religion to explain anything, they have to have the present moment. The present moment is the one thing that religion and science can agree on. The present moment. It's the only thing they agree on. It's the only thing, right? So what I'm proposing is, and what Zen proposes, is what if it always existed? What if it had always existed in the emptiness of the void, in perfect equilibrium with it? Without a beginning, without an end, an eternal struggle, an eternal balance of opposing forces. that's always here, always emitting, always creating, always generating the reality that we call now. Well, what does that mean? What does that mean? And when we look at both of these explanations, we see that if religion is trying to explain their perspective, in order to tell this story, they have to reach into imagination to string along an interpretation of a holy book, okay? And they use their imagination to present an idea based on the interpretation of words in what they consider a holy book. It doesn't matter what religion we're talking about. I'm just saying religion in general. And here's something interesting. But whenever science tries to describe where everything came from, they too must use the imagination. They can't talk about it without using the imagination. Isn't that interesting? Because all science is broken down and taught through parable. It's until it's translated into a parable, it's just math on a board, right? And then someone interprets that math and they tell a story to describe what that math is saying. And preachers look into a book, which looks like gibberish to most people, and they try to use the words of this book to explain where everything came from. And they do that through parable. So science is telling parables, and religions are telling parables. So all we have are stories. No matter how you look at it, there's no evidence. It would be very, very clear here. There's no evidence to back up either story. They're just stories. They're just stories. And yet they're both true at the same time. That's what I want you to see. That both of their stories are true at the same time. The story of science is true, that everything came from a Big Bang. And the story of religion is true, that everything that is came from God. So if we think about, what religion talks about, the center of the Big Bang, they call that the singularity. I talk about singularity on this show a lot, and what I'm usually referring to when I talk about singularity is I'm pointing to technological singularity, which is an exponential curve of technology that when it reaches the peak of this exponential growth at the top here, there is so much change taking place. You could say 30,000 years of human development will happen before lunch, and that will happen every single day. And a famous computer person, Ray Kurzweil, coined the phrase singularity to explain that moment, to express that moment of exponential growth of technology. And if you're a physicist and you're describing the Big Bang, they call that moment of the Big Bang singularity. They say it's just where plasma ignited. They can't say where the plasma came from, but there's plasma and it ignited and it blew apart, and everywhere it blew apart created time and space. That's their explanation. Kind of like the way a thought takes place in the mind, right? It just blows apart. There's a thought, and then all this stuff kind of ravels around it, and the thought grows, and the thought grows, and the thought grows, right? It's pretty incredible, isn't it? Are you guys able to see a little bit of what I'm talking about? Can you see how they're both the same thing? They're both telling the same story. They're both telling the story of now. They're both telling the story of now. And the story of now has the same moral, regardless of the perspective. So it doesn't matter if you're an atheist, or it doesn't matter if you're religious. The moral of your story, the story of now, is that you thrive and realize who and what you are, what your place is in this state of reality. You guys with me? You guys seeing what I'm saying here? I'm bridging together science and spirituality into one thing. It's a big idea. It sounds simple on the surface, but it's a very, very big idea. So I want you to kind of really see what I'm saying here. That these two factions of the world who couldn't be more opposed against each other, they're so blinded by their dogma they cannot see that they are both saying the same thing. What if God and the singularity are the same thing? That everything came from one thing. Everything came from one thing. Including consciousness. Including consciousness. That consciousness is not the result of biology, but consciousness is fundamental. It is the fundamental substrate to all reality. That first there was the thought, and then was the explosion. It's a very big idea. Very big idea. So what does that mean for the singularity that's fast approaching us in reality? What does that mean? It seems like we're going back to singularity, aren't we? Kind of like the way the cycle of a wave comes back to the center, right? Goes down, comes back to the center. Goes down. Picture that being a wave, that center line being a wave. That everything cycles this way. Everything. What I want you to see is that when you look out into the world, everywhere you look is consciousness. Everywhere. Everything you see is consciousness. And not only is it consciousness, this consciousness has been here from the very beginning. The thing that you're calling your imagination is the only imagination there is. There's just imagination. And we all tap into it with our radio receiver. That it was imagination that blew out from the Big Bang 13.79 billion years ago. And that even the idea of 13.79 billion years is a thought. It's an idea that was also birthed from this singularity explosion that created everything. Whether you believe that was particle physics, or you believe that it was God saying, "Let there be light," either way, it's the same story. It's the same story. And then people who are married to either side be like, "Oh, that's just ridiculous. Those people are idiots. They're crazy. They're crazy." It doesn't matter which side you're on. That's what they're going to say. Those people over there are crazy. And yet they tell the same story. Not only do they say the same story, but they tell it through parable. They tell their side through parable. Super deep, right? If you guys are getting this is super deep. You guys should have, your minds should just be going, if you're really catching on what I'm saying. Because what I'm saying here changes everything. I'm literally showing you that the here and now is all there is. It's all there ever was. There's just this. Because time is a construct. Is a construct of consciousness. It's a construct of the imagination. The imagination, the thing that you call your imagination, is everywhere you look. You're literally standing in the middle of imagination. As a matter of fact, you're standing in the center of imagination. Because if imagination is infinite, then no matter where you are in the world to perceive, that infinite imagination is, by definition, the center of the universe. It's the center of imagination. There's no other way to look at it. That's to define infinity. You have to remove time from your perception of reality. Time is what screws it all up. Time. Because time creates space, and vice versa. Space creates time. And they're just tools. They're mechanisms of consciousness to catalog itself, to organize itself. We have to be somewhere, right? We can't just be floating ideas in mind. In order to have an experience, we have to be somewhere. So we create this place that's Earth. And you guys go, well, why does it have to be so crummy? Why does it have to have all these bad aspects to it? Because it's created through the push and pull of the opposing sides. It's through that pushing and pulling. It's through this eternal war in heaven, as they say, between the black and the white, the positive and the negative, the masculine and the feminine. It's from that push and pull that everything you could imagine is created. Everything. And it wasn't happening 13.79 billion years ago. It's from right here, right now, going out. So it's not that the Big Bang happened way back then, and that was the spark of God, if you will, and then everything subsequently happened over the course of all this time to create the here and now here. That's not what I'm describing. What I'm describing is the here and now as it really is. That the here and now is magical. It's completely magical. It doesn't require an explanation. It's a miracle. It's a miracle of existence. And when we try to explain why this miracle is taking place, our imagination fills in the question with our expectations. Whatever questions we're having about how did I get here, what is happening, the minute I start having these questions, those answers are filled by the imagination, and they are filled according to our expectation. Dinosaur bones, for example. You go, oh, well, there's dinosaur bones. That's how we know there was a past. And then things happened a long time ago. That 65 billion years ago, there were these reptiles that roamed the earth, and we have their bones, right? And we can dig them up, and we can put them in a museum. Not really. What I'm saying is, there's only the present moment. And if you believe there are the bones of dragons out there that we call dinosaurs, and you, in going out and looking for them and digging for them, the imagination is going to create that for you, and you're going to find bones to validate the dream. It's all these details come into fruition to keep the dream going, right? It's all about keeping the dream going. This is what the adversary does. The adversary wants the dream to keep going, right? Because the minute it starts not making sense, what happens? You wake up. You wake up and the game is over. So it's trying to preserve the game. And it will always try to preserve the game. Always. It's always going to fill in the detail of your expectation. Thoughts become things. Whatever you expect to happen in your life, this is what's going to happen. So if you want to change your life, change your expectations. If you keep expecting to have the same old thing happen to you, then the same old thing is going to happen to you, because that's what you're expecting. And this imagination is what spirituality calls the Holy Spirit. And it wants nothing for itself. Nothing. It's the true mother of everything. It wants nothing for itself and only our happiness. It wants to give us whatever we want, anything we want, anything. And if what you want is to find dinosaur bones that existed 65 billion years ago, well, poof, there they are. It's happy to provide that story for you. It doesn't matter what the story is. So if you can really digest what I'm saying here, and you have to throw out a lot of dogma to digest what I'm saying here, then the imagination will work for you too in the same way. It will provide for your expectations. Whatever you're expecting to see, that's what you're going to see. That's what you're going to get. Do you see how completely beautiful that is and loving that is? You could say that love is really the fundamental substrate, because they're synonymous, right? You cannot have, the minute you name something, it has a duality, right? So the fundamental substrate of all reality is consciousness. Flip that coin over, what's the coin of that? Love. Love. The only thing that doesn't have a duality, it does have a duality, because anytime you name anything, you're creating a division, right? The name is the knife that cuts the thing into two. But when we say love and we identify love, the duality of love is the antithesis of love, which is unconditional love. But either way, it's telling the same thing. There's love. I love you so much. I just want to hold you and kiss you and hold you, right? I love you, love you. Don't leave me, don't leave me. I love you, right? That's one kind of love. And then conversely, there's unconditional love. You can do anything you want, and I will still love you. Anything. Go play. And I will still love you. Can you see that they're opposite things that say the same thing? Kind of like religion and science. They're opposite perspectives of the one thing. And because they're both pointing at the one thing, the one truth, and there's only one truth, regardless of what spiritual path you're on, I don't care what religion it is, or whether you're following my words, or you're getting into Zen, or whatever it is, it's all leading to one thing. Consciousness is all there is. Love is all there is. That's it. There isn't anything else. Just love and imagination forever. And this love wants to make you happy. It wants to give you anything that you want. Even the bad stuff. It doesn't know that it's bad. It just knows that you want it. And you go, Ford, I don't want bad stuff. Well, then why do you think about it all the time? Stop thinking about it, and you'll stop getting it. The minute you start seeing that you're thinking about bad stuff, change your mind. Change your mind. Have awareness. Have awareness. The minute you start feeling bad, that should be your sign that you've got to re-examine where your thoughts are. Where are my thoughts? If you're in a bad mood and you catch yourself slamming something, that should be a sign to wake you up. To go, whoa, 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 where is my mind right now? Why am I losing my shit over this small thing? Right? And change your mind. Change your mind, you change your thoughts. Change your thoughts, and you change things. With your thoughts, you're using your imagination to create the world before your eyes. Thoughts become things. So I'm going to read you this passage that I worked on really hard when I was writing my book, The Devil's in the Details, because I wanted a way to sum this up. So I'm gonna read it to you, and I really carved this paragraph out over a couple of months. So listen to this a couple of times, because I'm gonna give you a synopsis of everything that I'm teaching and showing and pointing to on this show. I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna say it in one paragraph. Are you guys ready? Okay. Imagine for a moment an all-knowing, timeless consciousness, dreaming of the present moment. This dreamer is an infinite intelligence that is so complex, it metaphorically creates all details about evolution for the purposes of maintaining the integrity and beliefs of the current dream state. For it is within this eternally present moment, this eternal dream state, this experience before your eyes, a living dream that we eternally exist in now. It is a dream brought forth through the creative power of imagination, known as the Holy Spirit, and manifested to our expectation in the here and now. That's it. If you could understand that paragraph, you don't even need to watch me anymore. If you could understand that, you'll see the truth. And the truth is, it's just a dream. And you are the dreamer. You are the dreamer. It could be a nightmare, if that's what you want to focus on, or it can be a beautiful dream of pleasure and fun with an occasional challenge. But it's all about your mind. It's all about where you put your mind. It's all about believing, even when there's no chance, at all, that you're going to be able to make this happen, and still having that faith that yes, if I control my mind, control my thoughts, I can make anything happen. Anything. Without limit. Without limit. When I tell you, when I made the bid on this castle, there was no way I was going to make this happen. I was just going through the motions of, why not? I'll go for it. What's the worst I could say is no, right? And if it's not this castle, it'll be another one. It'll be something like it. Either way, I'm exercising the mind, getting it prepared for this dream of living in a castle. And bam, it happened. It happened in less than 24 hours. That's the power I'm talking about. That's the power I'm talking about. Don't look to the specifications. Don't look to the details of what brought that into realization for me. All of it's bullshit, because there's only the here and now. And whatever you want, you can have. You just have to act as if it's happening already. That's how you work your imagination. You act as if. You act as if it's already true, no matter what it is. If you act as if destructive things are going to be good for you, then the destructive life is what you're going to get. The imagination doesn't care. You're the driver. It's going to give you exactly what you're thinking about, exactly what you want. This is why you have to be so careful with your mindfulness. You have to really, really watch the mind. It's when we're locked into a single perspective, whether it be religion or science. If we can't see both sides of the coin, we're locked into this side or this side. And if you're locked into either side, you're going to fall into the details of what each side proposes. So the details on the spiritual side counterbalance the details of the science side. Do you see how they both balance each other? Here's one way to look at it with all of the credulity in the world, and then here's another way to look at it with all the credulity in the world. And both of them have no foundation of truth. Neither one of them can prove their point. Neither can prove their point. I don't care what scientists say, they cannot prove it. They can't. It's just a theory. It's just a theory, and theories change all the time. And in trying to prove the Big Bang, they contradict one of their most basic scientific principles, which is the law of thermodynamics. So it isn't true either. It's just as ridiculous as the religious portion. But you put the two together, and what happens is you're not confined to one side or the other. And when you're confined to just one side, you start buying into the details of this side or the details of this side. But it's the details that create the mental prison that you find yourself in. The details, the dogma. If you marry those details, you're going to be a prisoner for the rest of your life. You got to surf. You got to have 1 foot in and 1 foot out. 1 foot in the scientific world, so you can make sense of the world, because the whole world is built out of science, right? We'll call that the dream. And then 1 foot in the metaphysical world, where everything is just imagination. But if you live too much in either side, you're going to be lost. You're going to be a prisoner of the mind. You have to recognize that both are true at the same time. That science provides fractality and the rules for navigating the dream, and religion provides the rules for understanding what you are here to get out of it. But when we say that one is true and the other is false, that's when we're lost. That's when we're lost. It'd be like trying to drive a car without a brake and only having a gas pedal. Doesn't work too well. You have to have a brake, otherwise you can't stop. Right? It's the truth of the eternal present moment that brings both of these sides, these opposing thoughts, together. And this is the same for anything that you can think about. Anything. If there's anything in your life that you're thinking about that might have you upset, or you say, if I think this way, it's going to go this way. If I think this way, it's going to be this way. And you're torn between two opposing ideas. You have to realize the truth of the present moment, that neither one of these things are true. What's true is this, here and now. Now, from the here and now, do I need a more mechanistic way of looking at this? Should I look at it through a little bit more of the eyes of logic and science? Then I'm going to lean this way. But if the present situation requires me to have reverence for life, then I might want to look through the lens of the spirit. They're both true. They're both absolutely true. They're just lenses through which we see reality. You need both, or you'll just be lost. They both serve each other. If we didn't have the dream, then there would be no one here to appreciate and have the astonishment for the reverence of the divine. You have to have the dream to do that. If there's no dream, there's just spirit, which has no feelings either way. It just is. It just is. It's just experience without any kind of attachment. But it's through the dream, which is ruled and governed through logic, that we can separate the reverence and have appreciation for it. You guys see what I'm saying? Awesome. Well, I've been on here for about an hour. I hope that was good for you guys. Boy, we got a nice little crowd in here. We got almost 50 people in here. This is great. So if you have questions, now's the time to propose them. By the way, you can always propose a question at any time in here. Just do it in all capital letters for me. And I'm going to go through this right now and see all of these hundreds of comments that I have here in this thing, which are awesome. And just put your question in capital letters so I know to focus on it, and I'll answer it. Cartoon says, Heart says, you're reading the Kybalion, and it states that all is mind. That's correct. If you guys haven't read the Kybalion, that is the holy grail of books for this study. If there's one book that you read, it's the Kybalion. I actually recommend, I've read it several times, but I got the most out of it through the audio book, the audio version of the book. And there's plenty of them for free on YouTube. So I would suggest starting there, listening to it a couple of times and then reading it, and you'll digest it in another way. It's called the Kybalion. The Kybalion, which is just a mechanistic view of reality, but includes the spiritual component. which is important. It's through balancing these two perspectives that we can see what is called the absolute truth. The absolute truth is this thing that's in the middle of these two opposing theories. That's the absolute truth. This side is relative truth, and this side is a relative truth. The absolute truth is the thing that's sandwiched in between them, which is the present moment, the here and now, forever. Forever. The here and now doesn't have a past. The here and now doesn't have a future. It just is. Forever. It just continuously blossoms. It's just the imagination emoting. Just emoting. How about this? How about this? And we call that emotion. We call that emotion. And emotion rises up in us, right? This is the imagination at work. Emotion rises up. And then we take that emotion and we start trying to identify the emotion. We start putting labels and words on that emotion, right? Oh, I feel like this. Well, it must be this person's fault, or it must be the fault of this thing, or I feel amazing. It must be because of this, right? And we start adding these thoughts to it. It's just emotion. It's just emotion. And it emotes like a vibration. It's good, it's bad, it's good, it's bad, it's good, bad, and all the little differences in between. Try to see that. Yes. Yes, Gigi, and have no fear. Gigi says, no more Catholics for me. You can't throw the babies out with the bathwater. I think that the Catholics, I think that there was a time when the early church teachings of Christ, which is the Christ consciousness, the more Gnostic way of looking at things. Not that I'm into Gnosticism, I'm not, so don't think that. But this idea that Christ is in you is the true teaching of the Christ. And I think that the adversary corrupted what we call Catholicism in a very profound way. So I get what you're saying with that. Yeah. Any institution is going to be corrupted by the adversary. This is what the adversary does. Why does it corrupt these things? Because it wants to keep the dream going. That's its job. The job of the adversary. It's a game. Remember, it's a game. Don't take it personally. The job of the adversary is to keep the game going. Oh, you think now is all that exists? Oh, well, let me show you this historical fact to show you why you're wrong. Do you see what it does? You're wrong. Look at this historical fact. It's all I can do. And you have to choose whether or not you're going to look at that and take it in as truth, or just look at it and just take it in as the dream. Okay. Any questions going through here? Man, a lot of comments. You guys are amazing. Cousins in love. I love it. All right, let's see. Yes, you got to transmute all that fear into love. And how do you do that? You do it through gnosis. You do it through the realization of what I'm talking about. No matter how angry you are, no matter how upset you are, no matter how depressed you are, just look at it objectively. There's feeling. You have no control over that. All you can do is look at it. So, a lot of people don't realize that. They think that they are their feelings. I think that is more true of the younger generations than any other previous generation. There's an identity with their emotions. And we all do this, all of us. I mean, even us old farts do that. But I see it as much more prevalent in the younger generations. You identify with your feelings. So if you're sad, you say, I'm sad. I'm so sad. Or I feel amazing. I am so happy. I'm so happy. You're not anything. You don't exist. There is just happiness and there is sadness. And your job is here to experience that. And experience it, if you want to thrive, with a big fat smile on your face. No matter how great it is or how bad it is, just love every minute of it. And know that all things are temporary. That everything is temporary. I get a lot of comments sometimes. People ask me why I wear skulls. I have a skull bracelet that I usually wear, and I often will wear t-shirts with skulls on it. The skull in Buddhism means impermanence. That's what it represents. The skull represents impermanence. And that is to cherish. It means to cherish and love everything, because it's to realize that everything fades. Everything is temporary. Everything. So no matter what it is, good or bad, love it. Fall in love with it, whether it's good or bad. Because if it's bad, it's here to teach you something. And if it's love, it's here to reward you for the lesson that you just learned. And it's always going to be that way. And it's all going to fade away. All of it. Manage your attachment. Yes, Gigi, age is only a number. You guys were discussing how old you guys are, and there's some young people. I have a great, awesome, diverse audience. I've got young people in this audience. Some of you are Gen Z in this audience, and then some of you are boomers, and I've got a lot of Gen X people like myself. I'm Gen X. But yes, Gigi, age is only a number. It's the mind. It's just the mind identification. You're as old as you think you are. Wendy says, everything is mentalism. Everything is a state of mind. Our thoughts, emotions, and actions create our reality. Yes, 100%. 100% true. Any more questions? Now's the time. Let's see here. Gosh, you guys are so awesome. I love how you help each other out, and I just think that's so beautiful. Let's see here. All right, any questions? Let's see. Boy, the fact that there's not this many questions means that I completely talked over your head, or I have the smartest audience in the world. And I have a feeling it's because I have a smart audience. Yes, Ted, everything is mind. Everything. Boy, lots and lots and lots of comments. This is great. Christy says, oh, you've been following me since Phi Tribe? Thank you very much. Yes, for those of you who don't know, this is the side channel. My main channel is called Phi Tribe, P-H-I Tribe. And this is my music channel where I do music to connect your consciousness, your imagination with source consciousness. It's to help you connect that third eye with the all of consciousness. And it does a lot of other things too. It has all kinds of health benefits and everything else. So that channel is huge. We've got over a 250,000 followers over there. And I felt a kind of responsibility to start this channel because if you listen to that music, a lot of people have repeated lucid dreams. You have lucid dreams all the time. And if you have enough lucid dreams, you're going to start to see that life itself is a dream. And I felt a bit of responsibility to create this channel to explain why that is. Because if you go through life thinking that everything is a dream, there's places that you can land that are not very, very comfortable unless you have someone to kind of guide you through the experience. Awesome. Okay. Man. I think this is the most comments you guys have ever done in here. This is like nuts. I'm going through so many of them. Females or Angel says, is the adversary the dark side of the symbol on your necklace? No, the adversary is the white side actually. Because Lucifer's the light bearer. Right? The Holy Spirit comes from the black. It's the infinite. It's the infinite nothingness. It's not necessarily black. The white represents infinity, and the black is the negative image of infinity. So it's not empty. It's just the negative image of infinity. It's infinite nothingness, if that makes sense. It has infinite potentiality, and that potentiality is brought forth through the mind of the observer. So you could think of as infinity as the as the two working together to create the memory system, or you could say that the two work together to be the LLM of this AI system that you call your mind. Oh, you guys want to see a show on past lives and reincarnation? Okay. Not necessarily a satsang teaching. Could be. The reincarnation lasts forever. You just keep reincarnating. I like to say, like in Zen, it's to throw out the idea of a life altogether, and to realize that even your life is part of what imagination is. If you think about anything in your life, you have to resort to the imagination. Whether you are conjuring up your past, where do you go? The imagination. If you're thinking about your future, where do you go? The imagination. So life itself is an illusion. The idea that you were born is an illusion. Those are details that you're creating right now to explain why you are here right now, which is a miracle. And miracles don't require explanation. They're just miracles. Do you see? Which is a scary idea for a lot of people. What do you mean I don't have a life? What do you mean I wasn't born? I have parents, right? These are very steady things that we rest our consciousness on, because otherwise we're just in free fall, and that free fall is not fun. That free fall is ego death, and it's terrifying. So we grab onto things. We grab onto these things that we call reality to say, oh, this is who I am. This is who I am. It's like falling off a cliff and then catching a vine or something, or catching a rock, like, whew, okay, I'm not falling anymore. So I say all that to say that if you really practice Zen, it's to realize that it's reincarnation every single time you blink. For me, it's a little bit much. I say that it's reincarnation is every day I wake up in the morning. I'm waking up from a dream, and I'm stepping into the new dream, the dream of today. And it's just a day, it's just a dream that lasts one day. It only lasts one day. And the dream of tomorrow is really the dream of today, dressed up as the dream of tomorrow. But there's only the dream as it is now, forever. Let's see. Okay, so Females Ranger says, so do we want the dream to stay alive? Is that the goal? It's up to you. How much do you want to, how attached are you to life? It will last as long as you feel like it lasting. Eventually we get tired. We get tired of the dream, don't we? It's exhausting to be in here. And then we let go and we pass away. If we want to look at it in terms of life. Wendy says, they locked us in the matrix of time. Day, night time, lunchtime, work time, no time, lost time, and so on. Yes, I would say the adversary is what locked us in the matrix of time. Time is the foundation of the prison. And then the thoughts that correspond with time are the literal bars of your prison cell. Okay? And you could put away thoughts to break free of that prison cell. But breaking free of the prison cell is to realize you're still in prison. Okay, you're just out of your cell. But it's a lot better to be out of your cell. It's a lot more fun. The dream is a lot more fun if you're not confined to a cell. But there's no real escape. The escape is death, which is, we call that rest, because there is no death. It's just the space in between the dreams. So you have a dream, when you go to sleep at night, and then you have a dream, and then you go into a restful sleep, and then you go into an REM state again, and you have another dream, and then you go into a restful state, and then you vibrate again, and you have another dream. And what I'm saying is, this vibration of another dream is the thing that you're calling today. It's just another dream. It feels very real, feels solid, feels like it's something tangible and real. And this idea of a history of my life is what makes it feel very, very visceral. The idea that time is out there and that I have a history that brought me to this place. This is just spirit holding on to something, holding on to anything that feels like life. So the question is, do you want to be in the dream anymore? Then be in the dream. You have to let go of some of the truth to be in the dream, don't you? You can go sit on top of a mountain and meditate all the time, and you'll no longer be a part of the dream. You'll just be in bliss. But if you want to engage in the dream, if you've got some attachments to things in the dream that you haven't grown tired of yet, then stay in the dream. Stay in the dream. It's not about goals so much as it is about self-discovery and happiness, peace. You'll find that self-discovery brings inner peace. Kundalini King says lucidity. That's right. Lucidity of the here and now. Okay, Wolf says, does the material world and the region confine us to this perceived reality? Yes, I would say that the material world is part of the prison. It's part of the it's part of the construct that the mind has created to land our consciousness in. And what I'm saying is, this thing you call the material world, the foundation of this material world is in the mind. It doesn't exist out here. It only exists in the mind, and the mind is what creates the material world that you land on. Shusha says, what's up, Shusha? It's so nice to see you again. Shusha says, what about Venus being the morning star is the light bearer who is the adversary? Any thoughts on love and darkness? Getting confused. The adversary is the Venus. They call Venus the morning star because it's the brightest star in the sky, and it lights up very brightly in the morning mostly. Sometimes it could be so bright in the morning people will mistake it for a UFO or a train or whatever. It's a very, very bright light in the morning if you haven't seen it. You're getting into mythology, and I'm not. I can't say that I know enough about that to speak to be sure of what I'm talking about with that. So I know that the light bearer is considered Venus in the material realm because the light bearer doesn't exist, right? The adversary isn't necessarily a devil. It's just a force. It's a force. But in the dream, it has to exist as something. So somebody has named that Venus is the manifestation of the light bearer. Let's see. Angel says, you recently lost your job. Am I recentering or something? Yes. I would say that you're totally creating, and you're in the midst of creating a new reality for yourself. So now more than ever is the time to be really, really cognizant of where your thoughts are. Because if your thoughts go into fear, then fear is what's going to manifest. If you go, I lost my job, oh my God, and you start having all these thoughts about how terrible it is that you lost your job, then that fear is going to be the thing that you're focused on, and the Holy Spirit's going to go, oh, fear is what they want. Okay, here's fear. Here you go. Here's another. You want another helping of fear? Okay, boom. Here you go. Here's fear. I'm happy to give you anything that you want. So instead, gather your mind, gather your senses, and see yourself in the job of your dreams, whatever that is. Whatever it is. I don't care what it is. Oh my gosh, I've had that on forever. I'm so sorry about that. Oops. I'm back from the void. So, yeah. Let's see, what else do we have here? Yeah, so if you're worried about your job, just see yourself doing the job of your dreams. You're doing the job that you love so much. What does it look like? Close your eyes. What does it look like to wake up and go to that job? That's what you want to see. Whatever it is, you just want to act as if it's already happening and go through it in your mind. This is exercising the mind. The mind is like a muscle, right? The imagination is like a muscle. And if you don't use it, it atrophies, right? Just like if you didn't go to the gym for 5 years and you try to lift weights, it atrophies. You have to start from the ground up again. So you need to make a daily practice of focusing the mind and imagining things. Daydream. Daydream should be your main job in life. Learning how to successfully daydream again. Okay. Wolf says, sorry, I meant religion. Oh. Okay, I see it. Boy, Akasha Deep Gosh, I see your question here. It says, hi, a couple of days ago, I can feel the essence of I am when I am asleep. It's not lucid dreaming. A bit hard to explain. It's like I am and the contents of mind. Yes, it is lucid dreaming is what it is. That's how it starts off. There's a sense of you, and there's dreaming taking place, right? And the more that you can exercise that and practice that, you can make it more and more visceral. And the dream will, what happens is that when you have this I amness in your dreams, the dream becomes very, it's not visceral. It's more like you're watching a movie, okay? But if you can surrender to the dream, but keep the I amness present in you, then you can get to a point where the dream is indistinguishable from reality. Indistinguishable. And at the same time, you have your I amness to navigate it. And this is what it is to be lucid in the dream. That's true. That's true, Wendy. Play the game that you can't quit. For sure. If you're looking for a job, you should just, if you want success in this, you should just be looking at doing something that you love to do. What makes you happy? Don't worry about, can I make a living at that? Just see yourself doing it. See yourself doing the thing that you love so much. And dedicate your life to it, Make that you can't be like, oh, I kind of like doing this, but I'm going to watch TV 8 hours a day. No, if that's what you love to do, you got to go for it and fully commit. And if you fully commit, I don't care what it is, you'll turn your hobby into a profitable business. Okay, awesome. I think I got to all the questions. I think that's it. I'm at the bottom of the thing now. So if there's no more questions, I hope that was helpful to some of you. Man, we got 60 people in here now. This is great. Okay, well, I'm going to sign off here and say goodnight. I've got a lot of packing to do. I've got 3 weeks to get my act together and move into this new place. And it's going to be awesome. My dream castle is manifested into fruition. And you can do the same thing. Okay? I'm doing this for you to show you that it can be done. Anything. There's no limit. Okay, Akasha says, your dream is not a lucid one. That's what you're trying to ask. You are dreaming when it's a lucid one. In my case, I know whenever is going on in mind when there is no sense that I am dreaming. You mean you're lost in the dream? I mean, you can have dreams without being lucid, but the problem is if you have those dreams when you're not lucid, a lot of times it's hard to remember those dreams when you come through on the other side, when you wake up. But if you can be lucid in them, and the Phi Tribe music will help you be lucid through them, you'll have a different way of looking at it. A totally different way of looking at it. All right, I love you guys very much. You guys are awesome. Thank you very, very much for hanging out with me. It's so good to see everybody. And I will be here next Sunday. I can't wait to see you guys then. All right? Take care and good night. Bye.